President Obama gets 4 more years, pretty much a sweep of the swing states. Were you surprised, though, watching the results come in last night?
Not shocked, but obviously very disappointed. And I thought there had been some more move back towards Romney than there was among the independents. And obviously the Obama campaign did a fantastic job of turning out its vote.
Yeah, I mean, it really is something. But, you know, you look at the results. Also, we still have a very much divided Congress. But as NRA President David Keene said, the real bad news for gun owners right now is in the Senate. We've got Schumer and Lautenberg that have strengthened their anti-gun force there.
Well, I'm not sure I agree with that. The Democratic Party had a net gain of 2 in the Senate. But as I look at who won which seats, I scored as we're actually 1 or 2 votes better off in the Senate than we were before. So, for example, in Indiana, that seat was held by Richard Lugar, an anti-gun Republican senator. He was defeated in the Republican primary, and then Democratic Representative Joe Donnelly won that Senate seat. So that's a gain for the Dems, but it's also a gain for gun owners because Donnelly had essentially a perfect voting record on gun issues.
Mm-hmm. What other races caught your eye?
Well, Ted Cruz winning the Senate seat in Texas is huge because although it doesn't change how the Senate's going to vote because Texas already has 2 strongly pro-gun senators. But Cruz, as Solicitor General of Texas, has been a great leader on the Second Amendment issue. He was the one who put together the coalitions of about 3/4 of all U.S. attorneys general in both Heller and McDonald to file amicus briefs on the pro-right side. So Ted is a great lawyer, and he will be a really effective leader on this issue in Congress.
You know, you look at the losses, though, in the Senate. You were talking about in Maine, independent Angus King captured the Republican-held Senate seat there, and Mayor Bloomberg dumped a lot of money into his race.
Yeah, that's right. So that doesn't bode well. Now, he's replacing a senator who retired who was about a C level in performance, not a but that means sometimes she voted on the correct side. And we'll see what happens with King.
Mm-hmm. But still strong support in the House, isn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely the House leadership is pro-gun, and it remains. The Democrats picked up, I think, a net of 6 seats, although it actually in that one, things are worse for gun owners. I think, although I haven't seen sort of the final NRA-ILA scorecard in terms of how many A representatives there are, how many Bs, and so forth. But just looking at the races that were, sort of contested, and that I could tell on whether you had a good guy or if there was a change in whether the seat was controlled by a pro-gun or an anti-gun person. I think we lost about 12 net last night.
But when you look at the House and you look at the fact that President Obama has already said that he'll support and wants to move forward with reinstating the assault weapons ban, going after cheap handguns, that's where the House will come in when it comes to the Senate, doesn't it, when you talk about the importance of the filibuster?
Yes, although Harry Reid and Dick Durbin are talking about probably changing the filibuster rule. Oh,
how convenient.
Yes. There's a lot that's going to, now that the election's behind us, there's a lot that's going to come out, starting with the EPA destroying the American coal industry and much, much more. And remember, there's a lot that the president can do with regulations rather than having to pass things through Congress. He's still going to have a tough time passing things through Congress, but there's a lot that can be done just by regulation, by his fiat.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, because here's a president, he doesn't mind using it, and he's gotten real good at it, but he likes to use executive orders if that's what it comes down to. You think we're going to see more of that?
Yeah, and besides executive orders, which are, strictly speaking, are just orders about how the federal employees are supposed to conduct their business. In addition to that, there's just the normal process of agency rulemaking, of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms going through the formal process of writing a new regulation. And there's all kinds of things that could come out of that.
Looking, though, at the good side, some really important gains on the state level when it comes to ballot issues.
Absolutely. 3 overwhelming wins for right to hunt and fish. And that's a movement that, as you know, the NRA has been doing this every election in several states to get that into the state constitution, and so we got 3 more. And I think that brings it now to about a third of the states, maybe a little bit less, that have the right to hunt and fish in their constitutions. So that's Idaho, Nebraska, and Kentucky this year. Mm-hmm. And especially important in Louisiana,
yes,
something to strengthen the state constitutional right to arms, because the Louisiana courts had essentially interpreted their state constitutional right to arms as being a nullity, and saying that any gun control was okay, even gun bans, as long as they were reasonable, which is a rather low standard to pass. And now the new constitutional amendment takes gun restrictions up to the highest level of scrutiny that legislation must pass in order to be considered constitutional, and that's strict scrutiny. And this was something that Governor Bobby Jindal strongly supported.
Right.
The legislature voted to put it on the ballot, and the NRA was the huge force in passing this. And I have to say, it was very disappointing that some ostensibly pro-gun individuals or groups opposed this under theories that I don't think make much legal sense. But it's fortunate that their obstructionism was not successful.
But I'll tell you what, it'll sure be interesting now you see this passing in Louisiana, getting the strong support it did from voters, to see if other states pick up on it.
Well, that exactly. And I think it got something like 77%. So at that level, I think that does become a good model to start, first of all, passing it in the states where it's easiest to pass it, like other strongly pro-gun states. And then going from there and setting a good example nationally. Yeah,
but I think the writing is on the wall. As David Keene said, gun owners are in for a real tough fight. And you got a president, he's not up for re-election, so this will probably be more about what he wants to do than what he wants the people want him to do, even though he said otherwise last night.
Well, I think at least some of us have learned that what he says and promises to do doesn't have much connection to what he actually does do.
Yeah, and the other big concern is the Supreme Court still. I mean, it's out there, and he's going to have chances to change it.
Yes, I think the first thing that happens is Ruth Bader Ginsburg will retire at some point in the next 4 years, and so he'll replace her. And then the big question is, does the health of Justice Kennedy and Justice Scalia and Justice Thomas hold up well enough so that they can outlive the next 4 years?
Yeah, it sure is going to be an interesting 4 years, too. But do you find yourself shaking your head because you look at this? I mean, you look at what happened in Benghazi. You look at Fast and Furious. One scandal, one cover-up, all the stonewalling after another, and you got a president who gets a second chance.
Right, and what you got to take into account on those things you just mentioned is that the overwhelming majority of the American media is very protective of this guy.
Yeah, well, it sure.
How many? You can remember 2004, where what turned out to be this fake story, but supposedly the George Bush had evaded serving in Vietnam when he was in the National Guard many decades ago, and this comes out, and it's a huge story throughout the American media. So that's this big October surprise, and here you have the president in Benghazi on this attack on American soil, because that's what a U.S. embassy is, on September 11th, and he lies and has his people put out this phony story that it was because of some demonstration about a stupid video on the Internet. They knew that was a lie when they put it out, and the president claims that he ordered everything necessary done to protect the embassy. And in fact, it's just the opposite of the truth. And the media doesn't even talk about that, most of them.
No.
So on the one side, it's this guy cheated on his National Guard service, supposedly, 40 years ago. And on the other side, this guy left American diplomats and other American personnel to die.
Yes.
With no military protection for 7 hours, and they've got no interest in that.
Yeah.
The media does. So it's one of the reasons why NRA News is so important, because it is an alternative media to at least get the word out to some people who want more fuller information than you can get from ABC and NBC and the likes of them. And then hopefully the people who listen to this program can then continue as media disseminators and tell their friends and relatives they talk with about some of the stories you get from NRA News, which the mainstream media buries. It's the same thing with Fast and Furious, except for Cheryl Atkinson of CBS.
Yes, and you know it. We talk about it all the time, but what Republican president would get away with this president has gotten away with? It's unbelievable.
That's the we are not on a level playing field, but that's the you play on the playing field you're on.
Yep, and it's going to be a tough one coming ahead. So
yes, fasten
your seatbelt and be ready to fight. Right?
Well, that's right, and really the gun issue is a lot better off after this election than a lot of other issues are.
Absolutely.
The president's. I mean, he's going to drive this economy off a cliff.
Yeah.
And we are rapidly moving into a sort of an Argentinian type economy, where the country went from being one of the most prosperous in the world in the 30s to now it's sub-mediocre state, and we will have a shrinking economic pie, especially in relation to the population growth. And politics will be about fighting over the pie and using the force of government to take some of that from some other person or group. And the closer you are to the top-down economy that Barack Obama claims to be against but actually wants to preside over, where it's run out of Washington, it'll be political influence rather than entrepreneurship and initiative that determine economic success. That's the direction we're moving in, and it is a catastrophe for this country.